Hey, hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo and today I'm going to update a video I made a little bit more than a year ago, like maybe a year and 5 months ago or something like that. And at that time I was testing one of the cards that I thought it was one of the best GPU in terms of price performance. So for a second market GPU, of course, because they're not produced anymore. And at that time, I said it was a very, very good GPU, and I really like the performance for the price that you can get this car on the second market for some reason. And that car and that GPU is none other than the RX 5600 XT. And as you can see here, this is a very beautiful model from MSI, very big, but you can get a much smaller. But I really like the design of this one. And this GPU, I bought it, and I don't want to lie here, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was between $120 and $140 at the time. So I will have to say that it's a very, very good buy, and you can still find them for the same price. But after 1 year and 5 months, is this car still worth it in 2024? And if you already know the channel, you know that I normally start with Dying Light 2. However, because I already tested that game on the original video more than a year ago, I'm going to use this time all new games. In this case is Hogwarts Legacy, the most sold game of 2023. And honestly, this game runs so good on this GPU. You can see there we're running at 1080p native on high and more than 60 FPS. There could be a hit here and there where it goes under 50 or 55, but generally you're going to have a very good experience, which means maybe you can use 1440p with FSR and still get around 60 FPS. The Last of Us Part 1 is one of those games that is much improved, but it's still not perfect. However, you can see here, we can at least now play at around 60 FPS, which is like double what we used to do on the RX 580. However, because of the limitation on the VRAM, we have to use medium settings or at least medium texture. It depends on if you want to tweak the settings manually. But using 1080p FSR quality at medium, we can get around 60 FPS. So sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's a very playable experience, and the game still looks very good and is running, from my point of view, excellent on this RX 5600 XT, which is still very valid as far as I can see. Spider-Man Miles Morales, another game that runs extremely well on this GPU, very high 1080p native. I will say that you probably can use 1440p FSR balance and get the same kind of performance or maybe quality and still get those 60 FPS. But if you want high frame rate, you can see here how it runs very good. I believe there is possible a situation where it goes down 60 FPS, but I think that's mostly cutscene with every character and details is higher. So I don't think you should have a big problem with this game. It should run like a dream. Of course, we don't have any ray tracing support on the RX 5600 XT, which will make things easier, and so you don't have to worry about those settings at all. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a game that honestly is heavier than I remember. As you can see here, we have to use FSR quality and medium in order to get those 60 FPS, but there are areas depending where you are where you can even get up to 80. However, one thing I have to say is that the game looks very pixelated. You see, there is a lot of shimmery, and you may think that that's because of the FSR, but even without FSR, the game tends to shimmer a lot. And don't remember that it was the case or why it's happening, but it seems to be the situation we are in with this game. However, I still think it looks quite good and it plays very well on the RX 5700 XT. So if you wanna try, you can give it a go. Resident Evil 4 is another game that runs really, really good. However, I have to say something. I use the preset prioritized graphics for this one, but the issue is that it's going above the 6 gigabytes of VRAM, so you have to set the textures manually. You can use the settings, but be sure to be under the allocated RAM because this game is very sensitive to that. But as you can see, we have more than space enough to run this game at 60 FPS, which means that if we ever go to another area of the game that requires more power, we have like 20% there where we can still go under the 70 or the actual performance and still get over 60 FPS. So this is one of those games that run really, really good on this card. Avatar is a game that I love, and I am very advanced and almost close to finish. I think it's one of the most beautiful games that has been made in recently. And as you can see here, we can get to 1080p FSR quality at medium settings and still get around 60 FPS, which says a lot when we consider the fact that this is a game that came just last year and we are running on a 6GB card. The fact that this game looks as good as it does and is run as good as it is a testament to one of the best works that Ubisoft has done, at least graphically. Then if you don't like the gameplay or the usual tropes of open world game from Ubisoft, that's another story, but I think this game deserves praise for the technical achievement because it runs really, really good. Tekken 8 is a game that is using the Unreal Engine, and we have it here at 1080p, TSR 100% and high settings, and we get mostly 60 FPS. There are some dips here and there, but they happen normally through only when it's like a cutscene or something like that, or well, not a cutscene, but like a special move, and you don't have control in that specific time because of all the particles. You can probably lower the TSR to 95% or use FSR2 or other technique if you want to iron out those little quirks, but I think it runs quite good, and if we didn't have that counter there, we wouldn't notice. So I will say this is another win for the RX 5700 XT that is running a 2024 game without issues at all. Now this is a game I'm testing because, well, it's a 2024 game, it's a different engine, but also on the RX 580 on this area we were getting around 40 to 45 FPS, while here we're getting a stable and perfect 60 FPS. Honestly, look at that line, this game really limits the 60 FPS perfectly. However, the thing that is most surprising is the fact that it's only using around 60 to 75% of the GPU, which means that if we ever get to an area that requires a little bit more GPU power, we still have a 20 to 25% and spare room to grow. So this means that this game is going to run this GPU is going to run this game like a dream. Really, it's a great result for the 5600 XT. And I wanted to test like Robocop. I just recently bought it, as you can see here at the beginning if you play already, and this is an Unreal 5 game with every whistle, and it's running once again very good, 1080p FSR quality, medium, and this is running above 60 FPS. There are areas or cutscenes where it can go under, but you know, I don't mind that happening during cutscenes. During gameplay, at least at the beginning of the game, we're getting very nice results, and I don't think this is going to change that much over the rest of the game. So yeah, we have here Unreal 5 game running very good on the 5700 XT. And looking awesome. Finally, this is a game that just came out, Pacific Drive. It's not a very demanding game, or it doesn't seem like it, but if you put this game in ultra settings or maximum settings, this game is going to really lower your FPS. Here, because the game doesn't have preset, I started playing with the settings, because if I put the game all on medium, then I get around 80 to 90 FPS. So then I started moving some to high and ultra, just a little bit random, and this is what I get, around 50 to 60 FPS. But yeah, be sure that you are going to be able to play these games at 60 FPS, no issue, if you just play a little bit with the settings. And as you can see, the game is once again running very good. After having seen the benchmark performance, you can clearly see that this card is still very good in terms of performance. If you're looking for a cheap alternative or for a used GPU for even a main PC, I will say. To begin with, this is RDNA 1, which is still supported from AMD in terms of drivers. This comes and accepts the new technology like AFMF, and with things like FSR3 fully supported on this card, that this card still has a lot of life in it. It's true that FSR3 is still not implemented on many games, but the thing is that it will grow and grow, so you will have a card that will last you for a long while. The only criticism I can apply to this card is the fact that it comes with only 6 GB of VRAM, which sometimes will limit what you can do with it. For example, in The Last of Us Part 1, we cannot play with high quality, because then the textures don't fit on the VRAM, so you have to go to medium or lower the textures yourself. But that's one limitation. However, even though in the RX 580 we were able to play on high, we were playing at around 30 to 40 FPS, while here we're playing at 60 FPS. And that was a common denominator with this card. There wasn't really a single game that I needed to limit or play around 30 to 40. You can get all the games to 60 FPS easily at 1080p, and in most cases without even having to use FSR. So this is really a GPU that I will recommend even today for anyone trying to build a cheap computer, because obviously it's going to play all the AAA games except maybe for Alan Wake 2, because it needs mesh shader and it was introduced on the RDNA architecture until RDNA 2. But for everything else you will be able to play no problems whatsoever. Sometimes you will have to make some adjustments in terms of texture to make it fit on the 6 GB of VRAM, but if you're trying to build like a cheap computer, or trying to save some money and then invest more money on the GPU later, because right now you can, this is a very valid GPU even in 2024. So would I recommend that if you get it for like between $100 and $150? Absolutely, I think it's a beautiful GPU. It's still running very good, and as I said, you can get it for very cheap on the second market. So yes, there is the RX 5600 XT. In my book, is still a great GPU in 2024.